Hello and welcome to Schmidy's Guide to Hammer DPS in Secret World Legends. This video is for players who are planning on using Hammer as their primary weapon, and we'll be going over a short rotation and a build for each other weapon in the secondary slot. So, first things we're going to do is just check to see what the good weapons are. I think that the best hammer right now is the pneumatic maul of energy. Just hands down, it is the best thing out there. But there are a couple of other honorable mentions here. We'll just check them out in the auction house. The first one is going to be the Hell-Forged Warhammer. Consecutive hammer abilities will give you extra rage. Basically, the way it works is it goes from 1 stack of this to 6 stacks. It disappears each time you use a non-hammer ability, and it gives you extra rage. Really strong for a hammer main hand, not as powerful if you're using it as an offhand. And the other good one is, we're going to have to get past the claw here, but the Mangler, which makes it so every time you become enraged, your crit power is increased. Both of those seem to be pretty solid, but the pneumatic maul is just by far my favorite. So we're just going to be running through basic rotation for each one of these things, starting with Hammer Blade. Our core for Hammer is Smash, Seethe, Demolish, and Eruption, and our abilities are going to be Outrage, Obliterate, Annihilate, and Unbridled Wrath. Then for our blade, we're running Swallow Cut and Spirit Blade, and Measure Twice, Cut Once will actually make it so that we can keep solid Spirit Blade time up with our blade. It turns it into actually quite a solid secondary weapon. So, we'll begin. I like to usually start off by using Demolish, immediately using Seethe, and then crushing Eruption. That just makes it so that a lot of my cooldowns are being used right away, which makes it so that I can use them more frequently. So, helps with the burst. So, here we go. Demolish, Seethe, Eruption, use a couple of blades just to make it so we're not burning energy. And then, as you can see, we are getting a lot of Spirit Blade up on our blade pretty much instantly with the power of Measure Twice, Cut Once. And throw another blade out there. We can actually get up to 3 chi for free with Measure Twice, Cut Once, which makes it a really solid choice. You can see that I got a pneumatic maul proc there, which is why I was unafraid to just let the Eruption rip. Sometimes you'll want to be a little more careful than that, but we don't have to worry about that. And once we hit one more Eruption, we'll call it good. Alright, so let's see how we're doing. 53, pretty good. We're actually just, 53 is pretty solid DPS. Since we are expecting to do about 10 times our average damage here, that is really good damage. Do keep in mind that Hammer will burst really high and then it'll start to decrease afterwards, so it'll actually decrease to a little bit less than that, maybe around 5,000, but you're still doing more than your average expected damage, which is about 4,600 DPS. Next, we're going to run Hammer Fist. Fist has a great secondary for stuff like this. We're going to be using Mangle with its little passive. That seems to be about the only thing we can really do for that. And then we're also going to be using Savagery, because that increases our own damage. You see, I'll have myself as my own defensive target, so it does more damage. Also, because it's super unfair to start off with like 1.5 bars of rage, we will be unslotting that each time. So, we're just going to hit some big numbers with our Savagery up, and then we're just kind of gonna let stuff rebuild. We're basically waiting for Savagery to come back up so that we can use all of our big stuff again. And now we wait. We're just trying to use as much big stuff under savagery as we can. We're going to want to use another one right here so that we don't burn a pneumatic maul. One more eruption should do it. Use all of our big stuff under savagery again. And there we go. Did not get nearly as lucky on this one, so let's see how we did. Yeah, a little bit less for sure. Still did alright damage all told. And yeah, that's what I would suggest here, is try to make sure that you're using all your big stuff under savagery, because that'll allow you to do extra damage. It's also usually going to coincide with when opening shot is getting used, if that's in your party, and that'll also help you to do a lot of damage. Now let's go to the next one. Is going to be Hammer Blood. And the differences here, we're just using Maleficium. We're using Desecrate with the Defilement passive, because that's the only way to get some good corruption out of Blood as a secondary. It doesn't seem to be the best secondary out there for sure. So, we'll start. I still like to do Demolish, Seethe, and then the Eruption. And then we'll probably just use one more Demolish and try to get some Maleficiums out of the way. We don't want to burn a lot of energy, because wasting energy is a good way to do really bad DPS. So now we're just waiting for Blood to have enough energy that we can use. There we go. 2 attacks in a row here. Oh, we'll get one more maybe out of it. Just try to keep our corruption up a little bit higher. Making sure that every time we use Eruption, it has the Enraged bonus, because that's super important. And we'll use one more Eruption here and call it a day. And see how we did. So in a minute 3 seconds, 5,400 damage, really good. Don't be put off by this. It's just that we got really unlucky. Remember, since we're only doing a 1 minute rotation, we're only doing it once. There's going to be a lot of variance. I actually think that that's a solid way to use your, or that Fist is a solid choice. Probably even better than Blood is. But Blood seems to be doing alright if you got somebody who's going to heal you. Keep in mind, you have no way to get rid of this. You have no good way to lower your corruption except for to just not use blood attacks for a while. So do keep that in mind. You might have trouble staying alive in fights where you take a little bit of damage over time. Next we're going to be using Hammer Chaos. One day I will remember to just show you the stuff here. You're using Breakdown and Reality Fracture with Rend Space, because this seems to do the best. This is also a really solid utility build, since you will be keeping 100% uptime on Exposed all by yourself. So, sorry, let's kick out the hammer. Put the hammer back on. Boom, boom. You probably actually want to start with Reality Fracture, just because it'll give you Exposed right off the bat. Not sure whether or not when you use Eruption, if it actually gives itself the benefit from Exposed, but probably just want to start off. That was probably a small mistake. Want to start off with Reality Fracture. So we're just sort of waiting for it to come back online here. We'll do one more Eruption here and call it right around a minute. Okay, so we did good damage there. Looks like some of it is probably due to the fact that we are keeping Exposed up for 100% of the time. So do keep that in mind, but it's a great utility build. If you don't see exposed, you have the ability to keep it all up by yourself, and it does good damage by itself. Chaos, not the best secondary, but it'll work. Next, we're going to be running Ellie. Our stuff here is going to be Mjolnir, and then Crystallized Flame with its passive, because its passive is just way too good to pass up. It basically makes Crystallized Flame do like 6 times more damage. So we want that. We're going to unequip our hammer real quick. Okay, so I would actually start with Crystallized Flame this time, and then go immediately into the rest of the stuff that we would usually do. And starting off fairly well, actually. I think we should have, yeah, Crystallized Flame up decently in time here. I think we just lost our visual of Crystallized Flame. Hopefully it is still doing its damage. And I think we need to do one more eruption to call it. We're going to lose out on a little bit of the Crystallized Flame goodness by doing it that way, but since Ellie is one of the more solid secondaries that I have seen, I think we'll be fine. Didn't get super lucky here. Still good DPS, still more than the average that I'm expecting, which is 4,600 right now. So absolutely good. Again, I think that this one ate a little bit of just variance since our rotations are so short. Getting 2 or 3 critical hits on Eruption is going to make our DPS spike really high versus not getting a critical hit on Eruption. So just keep that in mind. All the blade abilities are doing really good, and even when we're doing poorly, we're doing better than average, which is really important. So next we're running into the firearms. Shotgun is one of the best secondaries in the game with shell salvage. Going to be running Raging Shot and shell salvage with passive, which allows us to get tons of energy and also allows us to keep the shells the way we want them, which is going to be Dragon Breath rounds for this. So I like to start off with the regular one, which is just Demolish, Seethe, Eruption, fire the shotgun a couple of times, then we'll gain some free energy. We're trying not to waste too much of it on our first one, because any wasted energy is wasted damage, but we will not have that problem again. We will be able to easily use all the rest of our energy. Without it really becoming an issue ever again. As you can see here, we are not about to run out of energy. Or we are not about to have so much energy that we accidentally like burn some, even with shell salvage, which is really important. And I believe we need to do one more eruption to call it about a minute long. So we'll do that. Alright, and let's see how we did. Yep, 5,000 damage, really strong. We definitely did not have as many criticals as we should have there, little under par, because shotgun is generally doing tons of damage. We have to wait. Oh, I also might have just lost some extra time because that afflict keeps going forever and ever. So this might actually be several seconds past the time where we actually were fighting. Yeah, it still wants me to be in combat. It won't let me switch. Okay, there we go. So that probably did even more damage than we see here. It's a really solid option. Next, we have Hammer Pistol. I like to use Unload and Flourish. I don't really like Kill Blind here. doesn't seem to work out as well because we only have one free slot. So we'll just use Fixed Game and Flourish, and that'll be fine. Fixed Game allows us to have a matching set basically every time we use our pistol, which is really good. Unslot our hammer real quick. And again, regular start, which is just Demolish, Seethe, Eruption, and then we'll try to use some of our energy up here. Some neat things with Unload are to keep in mind are that if you start with a matching matching pair of chambers that only has, say, maybe 1 second left on it, even though this cast is 2.5 seconds, you actually get the full benefit for the entire time that you are attacking of that matched set of chambers. So that's a big deal. And then every 4 seconds, of course, we are getting a free one. Nothing there. And then you can get 2 sets of matched chambers here. You want to pay attention to when you're going to get either a blue or a red set of matching chambers right away, because that way, yeah, you'll want to get both of your unloads off here. That'll really help you out to get to the spot where you need to be to do good damage with pistol as your secondary. And I think we need to do one more to keep it around a minute. We'll find out here in a second. Oh, we did it a little bit early. Oh, got another freebie here. Okay, so let's see how we did. Super crazy good. Alright, so that was definitely above average for what I would expect, but again, you can see that when you've got these things going, Unload does a ton of damage when you've got blue or red. And just make sure that if it's a blue or a red one, you try to get 2 unloads off. And if it's a white one, you don't. You just try to get 1. Make sure that if you're trying to only get 1, that you wait for at least 1 second so that unload ends after you have rotated your barrels. Otherwise, Fixed Game will not activate if you still had more time going and you were not using a pistol ability. If you start with 3 seconds to go, it has a half a second left, Fixed Game won't activate. So make sure that you give it a second before you use a pistol ability if you're planning on not using another pistol ability right afterwards. Now we just have Hammer AR. Again, AR, not a great secondary weapon because you won't be able to spam grenades really hard, but it should be alright. I don't even think we have Rage, we can just start. So again, I like to start with a regular Demolish, Seethe, Eruption. See if we can get a grenade. Again, I have KSR, so I can immediately launch these grenades. If you don't, you'll have to wait a second, but over time, it should be the same damage. Try not to use your assault rifle if you will not have enough energy to then immediately use a grenade. This problem is mitigated if you're not using a KSR because you will not have to immediately get rid of it. Oh wow. I just noticed that for our pistol one, we actually did a little bit extra time, more time than we needed to, and still had good damage. Even though Hammer is very bursty and you would expect the damage to fall off over time. So we'll use one more Eruption and call it good for AR. Alright, and we'll see how we did on this one. Minute and 4 seconds, again, really good damage. I think that's nicely above what you would expect on average, because Assault Rifle isn't a great secondary. But, as you can see, if we're expecting to do about 4,600 damage with an average rotation, we're pretty much beating it every time, except for just little anomalies here. And that was just because it was, you know, a short rotation. We didn't get a lot of good critical hits. And you can see that here with our... Yeah, we had a 21% critical rate, which is a little under average, and those criticals were going on small stuff, not the good big stuff. So, this is Blade DPS. Hammer DPS is really good, and you should try it out. If you want to see some of the other weapons, then check out some of the other guides I'll be giving up. I'll see you there.